Hello, and welcome to the Elevator Careers Podcast, sponsored by the Allred Group. I am your host, Matt Allred. In this podcast, we talk to the people whose lives and careers are dedicated to the vertical transportation industry to inform and share lessons learned, building upon the foundation of those who have gone before to inspire the next generation of elevator careers. Today we are talking with Alan Greenwell. Alan has worked both in the office and in the field, in the U.S. and internationally. Alan started his career in the field and then spent 18 years with ThyssenKrupp in several management roles and locations. Alan is currently working in the field, performing modernizations for Urban Elevator, Texas. Alan, welcome to the show.
Absolutely. Glad to be here, Matt. Good to talk to you and see you again.
Thank you. You too. I'm excited. I've been looking forward to this conversation. Obviously, we've talked numerous times over the years. You've given me a lot to think about, and just wanted to explore your career. To me, you've had an extraordinary career. You've done a lot of things. And first question I want to ask is, how did you even get into the trade?
It's kind of a weird story, or different than most, in that I'd gotten out of the Army and done that for a long time and didn't really have a plan other than I'm just going to go to college and hang out and see where that leads me. And I'd been doing that a while, and a buddy of mine calls me up one day and he's like, "Hey, we're going to go on a ski trip to Colorado. Are you interested in going?" Absolutely. So we go up there, and there's probably a dozen of us piled up in a couple condos. And one night, one of the guys that was there that actually owned the condo had made mention that they were getting ready to go build elevators in an embassy overseas. And they were having a hard time finding anybody to go do the work because the nature of the elevator work, as well as having to have a top secret clearance to get into the building. And I'm like, well, ironically enough, it's still current. It hadn't expired yet. And he's like, well, what do you know about elevators? I'm like, well, I think I know everything. You hit a button, you get in the box, you hit another button, and you get off the box and you go on about your way.
There you go.
And so that's kind of how, even though I knew absolutely nothing about elevators, I had a clearance and they were willing to take me over there. So I signed up to go do a job in Hong Kong for about 9 months over there, and worked a little bit here in the States for him before that. And then did that job for him in Hong Kong, and came back, was here for a while, and actually got to go to Havana, Cuba, and work down there for a while as well, which is kind of between going to Hong Kong and building elevators and going to Cuba is
that's very unique. Yeah. Not everybody gets to go there.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I got in the business. And, I hadn't, everybody else that gets into the business, you have no idea what you're getting into until you're in the middle of it. And it's like, I kind of like this. It checked a lot of boxes as far as the type of the work and the technical aspect, as well as the physical aspect. And at the end of the day, you can look back and say, okay, at least I got this done. Right.
Right.
So that's kind of how I got started in the elevator business.
So once you came back from Cuba, then what was the next step?
I worked for, once we got back from Cuba, I worked for those guys for a little bit longer, and we kind of decided to go different ways. It was a great filler job, working at college, or, going to college and working part-time and stuff like that. And I ended up going to go to work for Fujitec here in Dallas.
Okay.
On the construction side of the business. And worked for those guys for a couple, 3 years, low and mid-rise tracks and stuff around North Texas. And then went down the path with ThyssenKrupp for, 15, 20 years, something like that.
And when you say down the path, you're talking about a leadership. So you left, at least I think, right? You left the field at that point and got into supervision and management?
Yeah. One of the cornerstone guys at Fujitec here in Dallas was a guy by the name of Russell Gardner. And he left Fujitec and became construction manager for, at that time, which was Dover.
Right.
And he'd been over a few weeks, and he called me and he's like, "Hey, you may want to get in on this." So I moved over to Dover in the office as a construction superintendent trainee, for lack of a better term, and then superintendent in Denver and Oklahoma City, Kansas City, just kind of bounced all over the country because I was the single guy that could go anywhere,
Right.
So, and I spent, I think it was about 18 years with Thyssen before I finally decided to do something different.
And as I understand it, at some point you left management and actually went back in the field. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. After 18 years at TK, I thought, well, I'm gonna, some differences, and decided to try something new, and went to Kone for a brief stint, and then just kind of settled with the fact that I wanted to be back in the field. So went back in the field. I guess it's been about 5 years ago, and I've been in the field. Worked at Fujitech for about a year, and then at Urban Elevator for the past probably 3.5, 4 years.
What
So,
was it that brought you back to the field?
you know, there's something to be said for the simplicity of just building stuff. There's no BS about it. It's tab A and slot B, if you will, or
No
um,
corporate politics. Is that what?
yeah, roller guides don't really participate in politics. So, and after 18 years of the grind and the politics and the corporate culture, which is some people are good with that, and I was for a long time. I just kind of got tired of it, and just the simplicity of showing up at 6 o'clock, building stuff and going home and not having to be badgered by 8,000 emails, phone calls, webinars, meetings about meetings to plan the next meeting. I just, reached the point where I was done with all that for a while.
Sure, sure.
So, like I said, I've been at Urban Elevator for, I think it's about 3.5 years now. So
Cool. So all told, you've been in the elevator industry for
26 years, I think. I got in late 95, I believe it was. Yeah.
okay. What would you say is one of the things you love the most about the industry?
There's days where it's just a job and it's like, you want to bang your head on the floor. Um, but overall, it's a really small, tight knit community. Um, it seems as if either everybody is related or they will be related at some point in the near future. So it's kind of a weird dysfunctional family, if you will, where everybody literally almost knows everybody.
Right.
And I enjoy that about the industry because, I can go, I was in Minnesota last summer for a race, and there's some random guy with an Otis hat. Well, he knows a guy that I know. And, so we spent 2 hours talking about elevators in the middle of the field in the summertime of Minnesota. So it's a big family, and the other thing that appeals to me is it's kind of a niche work. Everybody rides elevators, they get it, but until you work in the business, you don't realize that, hey, there's just a little bit more going on than hitting a button, getting on the box, and hitting another button. So that's appealing as well, and then just the mechanical and the electrical nature of it. So
Yeah. Tell me, so as you talk about the community, one of the things that I hear a lot is just about some of the mentors that have made an impact, and I'm curious who are some of the people that made the biggest positive impact in your life and career?
there's a handful of guys out there. The first probably couple three that really made an impact was Russell Gardner, who was a guy I worked with in the field at Fujitech. And Russell Gardner's been an elevator guy here in North Texas forever, and he's just one of those, old school guys that everything is done a certain way. Very much a type A personality. So everything goes a certain way, and that's the only way it goes, and so he was pivotal in my career. He helped me out a lot, taught me a lot of things. Another guy at Fujitech was Sam Patel. Sam Patel's been a cornerstone at Fujitech Elevator for who knows how long, right?
Right.
And then another guy here in town was Mike McIntyre, who I think at the end of his career he was COO of ThyssenKrupp before he finally retired a few years back. So those are the three guys, kind of in that early part of my career. Later on, as I kind of matured in my career, there were some people that had a positive influence. I don't know if they were necessarily mentors, but they were good people to watch and learn from.
Right.
Like Tim Cook with Urban Elevator, good dude, really good dude, super smart guy. He and I have worked together off and on for 10 or 15 years. A lot of valuable insight, good guy to bounce things off of, if you
Right.
will.
Very cool. Very cool. If there's one, one or two things that you feel like you've learned that's maybe life advice, and maybe you'd want to pass it on to the future generation, what would that be? Maybe you learned it from these people, or just maybe on your own.
Probably a little bit of both. I watch it go on today, just like it did, 15, 20 years ago. But so many people, they get in one silo of the business, their service sales, or their construction operations, or their a construction foreman. And they get in one piece, and they get in these silos that really don't change over the years. And there's so many different places to look at and go in the business that, even though it's the elevator business and it may be in the same office, just one door down in the same building, they're radically different, and I think a lot of people need to, really branch out and look at different pieces, because it's, if you talk to a service guy that has a resident route downtown, that is a completely different world and a completely different animal than a guy building, two-stop hydros for Thyssen in Midland, Odessa.
Sure.
There's the spectrum is so broad, and I think for a lot of people to get out there and explore those differences, and may not be the best fit for them, but at least check it out. At least, that way, So that would be the piece I would pass on.
Cool. And it sounds like you've learned a lot from doing a variety of things. You've been in and out of the office. You've probably built two-stop hydros out in the middle of nowhere, and then worked on the other routes as well. So
yeah,
very cool. What would you say is one of
that'd be the biggest piece?
Right. Thank you. What would you say is one of the things you're most proud of as you look back? Maybe it's,
oh, that's a hard question. That I haven't killed myself yet.
That's an accomplishment.
Yeah. For me, that is, Matt, I don't know that I have an answer for that. There were certain projects I look back on, I'm like, okay, that was really cool. And, it sucked at the time, it was a lot of work and it was hard, Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City, the job in Hong Kong, some of the stuff is really cool, but I don't know that I'm proud of it. It was cool, that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's cool. So, I hear from some people that, they love driving by a building and, hey, you see that building, I sold that, or I installed that.
Yeah. And I think it comes up every once in a while, and I didn't realize it until probably about the second or third guy. But there was this whole group of, I call them kids, right? Because they're not middle-aged or whatever, but they were younger than me, that, they were handed to me as kind of part of this construction management training program.
Right.
And, so, you spend some time with them. Sometimes that's 3 or 4 months or whatever, and you kind of nurture them along in the beginning of their career. And then they kind of go a different path, and you may not hear from them for a while. And, every once in a while, I get a call from one of those guys, and they're like, hey, I appreciate the time you spent, right? Or, the effort you put in, or, hey, you said this and it made zero sense then, but, 10 years later, I get it.
I get it.
Yeah. So that's probably what I'm most proud of.
No, that's awesome. I think that's, even though you can't see it, and especially immediately, how much you've been a mentor to somebody else, how much you've impacted their career.
Right.
How much they look up to you. That's great.
Yeah.
What are some ways you think the industry's changed since you first came on board?
I have this conversation probably about once a week. It seems like, one degree or another. The technology has definitely, evolved.
Sure.
And certainly the elevator industry evolves slower than many other industries, but it's still evolved, the MRLs, the controllers, things of that nature. But I think probably the biggest change is the shift from kind of a regional, I don't want to say mom and pop shop, but just kind of a regional privately owned company, to more of the corporate multinational path. And I think that's slowly but surely swinging back the other way, because, The OEMs went on a rampage and they bought up, all the local players. And now it seems like in the past, 12, 18, 24 months, all of a sudden there is this, every independent now has, instead of one office with 4 route guys, they've got 10 offices with 10 route guys in every office. So the pendulum seems to be swinging back towards the independents.
Right.
So it's kind of an interesting migration over the past couple of years,
Yeah. And if you, I'm sure you've seen a lot of change. If you could leave the industry a little bit better than you found it, what's one thing you would love to see happen? And we'll kind of make this maybe the last question.
Yeah. I would really love to see, because of the nature of the work, it's in a box, in the middle of a box, and nobody really knows what we do. It's kind of the black arts of the building trades. I would love to see where we as an industry promoted what we do and provided more visibility into that. So many people have no idea, how complex some of this stuff can be. The people that are involved, some people think it's just some random guy with a dirty pair of pants that has a crescent wrench. Well, that's not necessarily the case. Some of these guys are, we all know that one guy who was, has an electrical engineering master's degree and just liked working on elevators.
Right.
But nobody really knows that. I think there's this whole other world that if we promoted ourselves more and provided more visibility, I think it would kind of change the industry because, we're kind of overlooked in a lot of respects.
Thank you. That's a great thought, interesting thought to kind of chew on. And I appreciate you being on here with me today. Appreciate your thoughts and insights, and you stay safe out there, and we'll talk again later.
Absolutely. I appreciate your time, Matt.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Elevator Careers Podcast. You can check us out online at elevatorcareers.net. Please subscribe, and until next time, stay safe.